When I look at the Steam reviews for Dying Light 2, I see two types of people. Those who think that the game is just fine, great even if you look hard enough in the reviews, and those who see some serious flaws in the game. I happen to fall in with the latter group of people. I did not enjoy my time in Dying Light 2 whatsoever. In fact, by the end of the game, I was just begging for it to be over because I was having so little fun. It's kind of rare for me to be so negative when it comes to a game, but this is just a special exception that I have to talk about. So here's all the reasons why I regret buying Dying Light 2. I should note that I didn't always dislike the game. In fact, my first day playing, I had a pretty good couple of hours at the beginning. The intro section of the game takes you through a bunch of beautiful nature, and coming off the feelings I had from Dying Light 1, I just felt like the world was my oyster. There were endless possibilities. This game could go as far as it wanted to. Just because Dying Light 1 was so good, I had such high expectations for number 2. But it didn't take long after meeting my first NPC to show me that something wasn't quite right here with the dialogue and the voice acting. Hopefully this clip should clarify things a little bit. Ah!
What the?
Everything all right?
Yeah, just rats.
I think it's time we parted ways.
What?
Why?
I'm starting to worry about you. And you know our saying. If you're starting to worry about someone, it means it's time to go.
Wait. What does he mean he's starting to worry about me? I opened the door. Some rats crawled around. He said, "What was that?" I said, "Oh, just some rats." And he said, "You're starting to worry me." That doesn't make any... This theme of overall weirdness with the dialogue and the NPCs would just continue throughout the entire game. Everything about the NPCs feel off to me. From the animation, to the choice of words, to the way that the words are spoken. None of it feels very natural, if you know what I mean. Like, take that clip for example. I just don't feel like that conversation would play out that way in real life. You know what I mean?
I think it's time we parted ways.
I have suspicions that the script for this game wasn't written by someone whose native language is English, which is completely fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just feel like it shows. Almost all the lines in the game feel like they were recorded separate from each other, with little to no direction given as to set the mood or tone of the conversations. If you're still not convinced though, I got a real humdinger for you. I didn't want to have to do this, but I gotta pull out the big guns and prove that these NPCs are weird. Check out this conversation between NPCs that happens way later in the game.
You expect us all to fit in here? A little snug, ain't it?
Whose finger's in my ass?
Now that's what I call snug.
You kidding me? His bong's probably so loose you could fit a whole fist in there.
How'd you like my fist in your face? Fuck you.
I'd try fucking you, probably fall in and get trapped up your ass.
So very much to unpack there, that I'm definitely not going to unpack. Alright, so the voice acting and the character models are subpar. At least the story is detailed and fun, right? Wrong, Chief. This is 23 and a half hours. Yes, 23 and a half hours of saying yes to every single person you come across. Doing the most BS, pointless side missions that have absolutely nothing to do with the story, which, by the way, is you, the main character, trying to find out what happened to your sister. This is definitely not 23 and a half hours of straight story. The game pads itself constantly with filler just to try and lengthen the story, just to make the game and the world feel bigger, which personally I really didn't enjoy that aspect of it. By the way, in this clip that's been playing the whole time, there's this character named Lawan who was trying to follow you up this tower. You were doing something kind of dangerous. She tried to follow you, and she says that she ruined her shoes trying to get to you, and then she makes you go to her old apartment to get her a new pair of shoes. You can't not do it. You have to do it to progress on the story. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about with the BS side missions, stuff like that. I feel like we can all agree that when it comes to anything in life, we don't want filler. We want the good stuff and only the good stuff. So if the game ended up being half the time at maybe 12 hours, but cut out a bunch of filler and was only good story content, I feel like that just would have been better. For example, I recently played a game called Stray. It's about being a cat. That game is about 5 hours long, which a lot of people feel is pretty short for a game, but it's 5 hours of pure content and pure story. story. So at least there's that. I walked away from that game feeling pretty damn good about it. Then there's other games like Resident Evil 4, which takes like 14 hours to beat, or Dishonored, which is like 12 hours. Dying Light 2 added things so that it would purposely take longer to beat. Those other games I just mentioned added no filler whatsoever, and those stories are arguably some of the best in gaming history. By the way, those two games I just mentioned, I played them recently if you want to check them out. They're on the channel as well. Now you might be thinking that Dying Light 2 isn't one of those games where you're just supposed to run through the story and get it done as fast as possible. There's a whole open world out there, so you're probably supposed to explore it, and that's a lot of the fun and a lot of the good parts of the game, right? But yeah, that's true. The problem is I don't care to explore it, because unfortunately the gameplay is not fun. You're objectively worse at parkour in Dying Light 2 than you were in Dying Light 1. And I just went back to play Dying Light 1 to verify this. You get more perks earlier on in Dying Light 1 that make you faster and stronger. Plus, in Dying Light 1, whenever you hold onto a ledge, there's no stamina drain. In Dying Light 2, every time you're climbing, you drain your stamina, and it goes down pretty fast too, so you gotta get where you're going quick. It's less about cool parkour and more about like the puzzle aspect of getting up to where you need to go. You can't just climb up there, you have to figure out how to do it the right way. I think the parkour is a total downgrade from the previous game. And how can that be a good thing? I mean, the grappling hook in Dying Light 1 was straight out of a James Bond film. Everyone fell in love with that thing. It was the coolest gadget you got. In Dying Light 2, the grappling hook is just a rope that you throw and then swing from. That may be more realistic than the one we had in Dying Light 1, but why do I care about that? Oh, but Dying Light 2 has a glider, which you would think is the coolest thing that the game had to offer. Except, there's a couple problems with it. First of all, it takes stamina to hang on to the glider. We already talked about this, but your stamina drains pretty quickly. So the glider becomes less about having fun gliding across the map and more about figuring out how you can get where you need to go before your wimpy arms give out and you fall down to the ground. Not to mention, you can basically run faster than you can glide, so it really isn't about getting anywhere quicker or in a more fun way. It's about solving puzzles, and that's just not that fun to me. Now, to the glider's credit, I did have people tell me that you can upgrade it later on to get more stamina so you can hold on for longer. To that, I'll say, in Dying Light 1, the grappling hook was OP the moment you got it. Why change that formula? As soon as I got that glider, I should have been zooming around the whole city, having the time of my life, but instead, I just felt like it was a useless tool that I didn't really care about that much. It was pretty unfortunate. So the parkour and the zombie parkour fighting game isn't that good. But what about the combat? Worse than Dying Light 1. It takes a long time to kill anything, even with the weapons I was getting at endgame. Every time I got into a fight, I was pretty upset because I knew it was gonna straight up take me 5 to 10 minutes to take out a group of enemies. There's a lot of dodging, a lot of going in at the right moments. None of it was particularly fun. Again, it was almost like the combat was to be made a puzzle that you had to solve in real time, and I just didn't vibe with that. I should also point out that there's no X-ray vision like there was in Dying Light 1. Remember when you would whack an enemy and then it would show their skeleton and go slow-mo and stuff? It was really cool. Well, they don't have that in Dying Light 2. Also, you can still upgrade weapons in Dying Light 2, but you can no longer craft them like you could in 1. Why? I don't know. Again, another weird development decision.
Whose finger's in my ass?
Also, I didn't get a single gun on my playthrough in Dying Light 2, and that's not a fluke. There are almost no guns in Dying Light 2. The combat to me just didn't feel good. There's something about the way your weapon connects with people that just doesn't feel right. Also, this is pretty nitpicky, but sometimes people would hit me with like a hammer, but it would play the sound of a baseball bat hitting a baseball. Ouch. That's not like the biggest deal to me, but that kind of little bug sure stands out whenever you're having no fun at all with the combat system. Alright, now I've been pretty harsh with the game so far, but let's talk about how it runs. Should run pretty well, right? With my hardware, I can run Dying Light 1 at 1440p max settings and get close to 100 frames. With Dying Light 2, I had to run it at 1080p low settings and I barely got 60. Okay, so I do have to point out that the 60 FPS struggle was a back in February thing when the game first came out. I went back and looked at a lot of footage, and now when I recently played it, I was getting anywhere from 60 to 100 frames, just depends on where you're at in the game at any given time, but I was still running it on low settings 1080p. So there's that. Now I know that the way a game runs is pretty hardware dependent, but I just feel like since the game doesn't even look better and it runs worse in every way and it plays worse in every way, I just feel like it at least could have given me a good running, straight optimized game. Now to be honest, it's really no surprise that the game runs worse because Dying Light 2, if I recall, got delayed, and then when it finally did release, it released with a whole slew of bugs and optimization issues. I figured now that I'm playing the game like 6 months later after release, a lot of these things would have been fixed up, and I'm sure a lot of them have been, but it still doesn't really run that well. So it is what it is. By the way, if you've made it this far in the video, would you do me the honor of hitting the subscribe button? I'm trying to get this number right here to go up a little bit. Shockingly few of you who watch my videos are subscribed, so let's change that. I spent a whopping $60 on this game. I bought it the day it came out because I loved Dying Light 1 so much. At this point, I wouldn't really recommend Dying Light 2 to anyone. If this game were to drop down to say $5, I'd still probably warn people about it. It'd be a much better value at that price point, but I'd still let you know that my experiences with the game were not all that great. It's unfortunate that it had to be this way, but it is what it is. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to the patrons who help support this channel, and a special shout out to the VIPs, nickRSA, doktorjohaan, calabag, Hugh6707, jokeswithdad, defnotdallas, and willyboywonder. That's all for now. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.